thank you very much for coming. This is a great crowd. Thank you. Woo, woo, woo. This is our first reader of the Spring 2017 Visiting Writers Series, and I could not be happier to introduce you to Jim Daniels. Jim Daniels' 15th book of poems, Rowing Inland, will be published in 2017 by Wayne State University Press. His previous book, Birthmarks, received the Milton Kessler Poetry Book Award and the Poetry Gold Medal from the Independent Publishers Book Awards. His fifth book of short fiction, 8 Mile High, which my creating story students should know very well, was a Michigan Notable Book and a finalist for the Patterson Fiction Prize. The End of Blessings, his fourth film, appeared in many festivals across the country. His poems have been featured on Prairie Home Companion, Garrison Keillor's Writer's Almanac, in Billy Collins' Poetry 180 Anthologies, and Ted Kuescher's American Life and Poetry series. His poem, Factory Love, is displayed on the roof of a race car. He has received the Brittingham Prize, the Tilly Olson Prize, the Blue Lynx Prize, 2 fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts, and 2 from the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts. His poems have appeared in the Pushcart Prize and Best American Poetry Anthologies. A native of Detroit, Daniels is a Thomas Stockham University Professor of English at Carnegie Mellon University. Please give him a warm Nebraska welcome.
Thank you, Bonnie, and thank you all for coming. Since some of you have read some of my fiction, I thought I would start with a couple of short pieces of fiction from 8 Mile High. A lot of my fiction and my poetry is set in Detroit, and so I think this will take you to my high school as much as anything else. So the first introductory piece to this collection is called Soul Sacrifice, which is the name of a Santana song that they played on the Woodstock, at Woodstock and on the Woodstock album. And I don't know what it was like when you all went to school, but they had morning announcements, and whoever was doing the announcements got to pick the music that they'd play over the loudspeakers. So that was a big deal. And this story tells about one particular morning announcements. Soul Sacrifice. Mike Klanowski, the hippie who sat across from me in earth science, did the school's morning announcements once a week, choosing the song that played in the hallways while we changed classes. I'd asked him to play Soul Sacrifice by Santana and loaned him my Woodstock album. That ecstatic guitar spoke in tongues down the long echoing halls of 8 Mile High, where all 1,256 of us bopped a little, jiggled a little, shook our thangs a little, quicker in spite of wanting to move slower because soul sacrifice, for crying out loud. Earth science, for crying out loud, science for those not going to college, did not provide information more useful than biology or chemistry for us future factory rats. But having Earth in the title made it sound practical. After all, we lived on Earth. Why didn't they just call it Earth? They didn't call biology science. Klanowski arrived late to class when he did announcements. He was a music head and a pot head and just about any kind of head you could name. His wild, frizzy hair parted in the middle, permanently electric. He was one of 2 hippies at 8 Mile, the other being Jim Terlicki, a freak in every sense of the word, the tallest kid in the school with another 6 inches of blonde afro on top. He and Klanowski let their freak flags fly, and those flags were glow-in-the-dark, tie-dyed Acapulco gold. My father still cut my hair too short, and we fought over it. Beautiful Belinda Spitza sat in front of me, her long hair nearly down to her ass, and her ass that day, the pale round scoops of it slightly exposed above hip-hugger jeans as she bent over in her seat. As Soul Sacrifice wound down and we and we sat waiting for class to begin, Mr. Chubble, with his bald, skeletal, zombie-like head, smiled at Belinda, as he did every single day, though he smiled at no one else ever, and resented teaching her science because he was a physicist who should only be teaching the smart kids. Oh, Belinda knew what she knew because, like us, she was no dummy, so she always sort of smiled back, then looked away and got her B, sacrificing a little of her soul, but on that soul sacrifice day, she squirmed in her seat as if she was ready to rise up and testify. And I was swimming with her ass, neither of us distracted by books. They were so heavy, we were so light. And for 10 seconds I knew how hot the Earth's core was. When Klonowski showed up, his hair wagging like a happy dog, and plopped down across from me, he handed back my album that gave me all the multiple choices I would ever need, along with a convenient place to roll joints. And I unfolded the cover at my desk to glance at the large photo of blurry naked people. And Chubble was taking roll, and I was here, and Klonowski was here, and Belinda turned around, and it looked like she was going to say something, her eyes meeting mine above the album cover, but she didn't. And because Belinda knew what she knew and would have gone to Woodstock given the chance, she gave me a smile that exploded my head like a cherry bomb, then turned away to say, "Here," with a sneer. And Klonowski looked over at Belinda's ass and then at me and smiled and rolled his enormous eyes like something out of astronomy, like a constellation we all knew but had no name for. So, that's where all the learning that's taking place. And for those youngsters in the audience, you should listen to Soul Sacrifice because it'll get you moving a little bit. This next story is a short story, a list story. It's called 13 Ways of Looking at My Father in His Bathing Suit ×2. And again, so the whole notion of my high school and my community was that when we got out of school, we were going to go work in the factories just like our father. You know, it was the Motor City, all the car factories, all our houses surrounded all the factories, and that was sort of a fact of life back then. Can you all hear me okay in the back? Okay. I don't even know if I need this thing, but it's
A little louder.
a little louder. Okay. I feel like I'm not quite pointed enough. I'll move it here a little bit more. Is this better at all? So I think it's still on, right? Yeah. I just want to make sure. Yeah, I can hear that. Okay? Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to do a check before I carried on too much longer. So my father worked for the Ford Motor Company, and so did I, actually, to pay my way through college. And it sort of influenced that whole life of the hard work influences this poem in at least one, or this story in at least one poem that I'll be reading in a minute. So 13 ways of looking at my father in his bathing suit, ×2. 1, a shock the first time and every rare time after. Shy, shyer, gray, grayer, unafraid of the cold, cold water. He could not save us, but he did. 2, never shirtless at home, yellow stains spread on his arms as he painted white walls in summer heat and called it vacation. We weren't allowed to climb his magic ladder. 3, he held my hand as we waded in Burt Lake. I squinted up, afraid of pale skin exposed. He who never hugged, who shook our hands because his father could not swim and did not love him. Squeeze, squeeze harder. 4, is that true? My Uncle Jerry became a ghost at age 15, and thus my father leaned against that ghost, hoping to be seen through his parents' grief, to be allowed to swim. They only let him stick his toes in. 5, he had the care and patience and silence of a great chess player and the poker face of a man with a losing hand. 6, he taught me and my brothers poker at Burt Lake State Park, betting with matchsticks while rain drummed on canvas in a rhythm that stopped time. 7, cold Michigan lakes can baptize anyone into the religion of paying a price, but coming from Detroit, we already knew. 8, the Army taught him how to swim and swear and to guard the tight lid of his heart. The factory offered dark heat and sputtering sparks in the solid brick of a regular check. Thirst like dry syrup for the sweet or alcoholic. The squint in the daylight despite the soul's sunglasses. 9, he stubbed his toe trying to balance overtime with a life, a family life. Or he fell off the ledge or off the high wire into Niagara Falls, where he emerged at the bottom, putting the finishing touches on his barrel. 10, if he lied, I never caught him. I never caught him as he swam away from me, far out into the lake, Burt Lake. And who was Burt, and why did he, and did he have an old Plymouth Satellite for sale, cheap, transportation special? 11, his washed-out green bathing suit sagged with the dried-out elastic of the American dream. His only lesson was to toss me out of the rowboat in the middle of the lake where he'd anchored us. When he jumped in after me, I clutched him. I held on. 12, he didn't have a trucker's tan or a magician's tan or the tan of flaky Hollywood. He had no time for movies or anything that wasn't true. He was tanned by grease and darkness and the red-hot hands of the time clock. 13, he stood gaunt and white with dark swatches of hair, and we saw the mysterious red spots on his chest. Our mother called them wisdom spots. He might have blushed, or else the sun was having a word with him. 14, if you could see him in his pale, crooked suit, hands on hips, forcing a smile, you might pity this 2D man in a 3D world, beach balls exploding around us like flake laughter on the crowded sand. Do not pity him. 15, mechanical executioner, he drowned rats in a garbage can or pumped exhaust in through a hose. 16, he built cars and greased his hair on Sunday and ushered at church. I loved him as an act of faith. Getting ready for school, I smelled his cigarettes and shaving cream, his shit and his toothpaste, mornings in the bathroom after he was gone, long gone. 17, summers we cut the grass with a push mower. We took off our shirts. We ran in the sprinkler. We waited through dusk and into darkness for him to come home. Home, we moaned like wind. 18, I point my pointer at a diagram of the nearly naked man. From a distance, he looks like a large rock. Eroded, but rock nevertheless. Raccoon without the hiss. Caged polar bear with dignity intact. 19, close cover before striking. Strike when there is no choice. Offer no excuses. Shut your trap. Avoid traps. Everything's a trap. Do the smell test. A rat is a rat is a rat. 20. Vacation is a concept passed down from the rich and famous. If you must go on vacation, be wary of maps, fake Indians, and eating out. 21. The birds and the bees, another concept handed down from the rich and famous. Hand-me-downs and God. 22. Pack light, don't stare. 23. If you wait long enough, it will stop hurting. If it still hurts, don't tell anyone. Don't wash your hair and it won't fall out. 24. Fishing is for the dull, the insane, the already caught. Don't drown worms or purchase needless equipment. 25. He showed us the knot in his arm from high school curveballs. My father threw curveballs? We nearly fainted, but fainting was not allowed. 26. He wore his towel like Superman, his only joke. Yeah, I should mention that Rowing Inland is out right here, and I'm going to be reading some poems from it. And this is a couple family poems here to build on that. A lot of families have legends and myths and secrets, and one of the secrets that was just referred to briefly in that little story was the fact that my father had a brother who died when he was in high school. He also had a sister who died before she was 10. But I didn't know either of these people existed until I was in college, because my grandparents would not, they had no trace of them, they wouldn't talk about them, and my father kept the secret from us because I guess he didn't know what else to do. My grandparents were so overcome by grief that it really affected the rest of their lives completely. So we go to my grandmother's house, and she had a candy dish on her table. And this poem is called Hard Candy. So when a book comes out, I send it to my family for the reviews. Luckily, none of them live close to me, because we have these disputes. But for this poem, my sister just opened the book to this page and held the book open with that candy dish that she kept for my grandmother. Hard candy. In a dented metal dish on her coffee table, my grandmother kept the bright-colored stones. Summer heat clumped them. Christmas, they rattled like the jewels of her hard red heart. We took them, striped, round, pillowed, swirled, square, regardless of season or hunger. We sucked them small. We did not choke. We sat and waited for their sticky disappearance. She spit on a hanky and wiped our faces and said, "There, there." My father inherited the unspoken bitterness of grief. He refused all sweets. He dropped us off. He picked us up. He did not linger. His brother and sister died young, children forever, sealed in sticky silence. My grandmother would rot her teeth away before she'd say a thing. When we'd bite, the crunch echoed off her pale pink walls. She scolded. She had no teeth herself. She wore the same dress every day of her life, according to my sources, who, it's true, were distracted by candy. Her humped back, buried eyes, deliberate step, one big shell, and the candy, little shells. The dish clicked closed with finality of bone. Once I found a Tootsie Roll, but even that was petrified. They lived across from St. Rose Church. I dreamt my father and his siblings at an upstairs window threw paper airplanes across the street at God. Sending wishes, I think. I could not read them, even in dream. Once, before she died, she called me by her dead son's name. The next time she called me doctor. Silence was meant to be sweet and long-lasting. Catherine and Jack were their names. Perhaps that's all they wrote on those planes before letting them fly. I want to read a short poem for my mother because she was the one who kept the fort while my father was working at the auto plant. When I was growing up, he was usually working 6-7 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day. He told me recently, actually, that in 1972 he worked 800 hours of overtime. And I said, oh, no wonder I got in so much trouble that year, because he wasn't there. But think about that. That's 20 extra 40-hour weeks that he crammed into that year. So this poem is called Wishbone, and it's about my mother's spot in the house, which was the kitchen. My mother commanded her kitchen corner, 2 casement windows cranked open in summer while she steamed above sudsy dishes. Her 5 kids shot into dusk's after-dinner space, the street and other kids like us. 2 potted violets from her dead mother anchored the sills. If you find my father in this picture, please let us know. We still look for him far from that tiny house. My mother dried wishbones on those sills. It was she who decided when they were dry enough to break. She never wished herself. Growing up in this environment, I didn't like poetry too much. It seemed to be in a language that I didn't speak, about things that I didn't understand, and it was very intimidating. But what I connected to, as maybe you could tell from Soul Sacrifice, was music more than anything else. So this poem is called Red Vinyl, and vinyl's making a comeback, so all you young people out there know what vinyl is. But the Jay Giles Band had one record called Bloodshot that the initial pressing was on red vinyl. So when you slid the record out of the jacket, there was this bright, bold red color. And it really struck me because our places and our futures in school, which is part of why we didn't take school so seriously, was that we, like I said, we anticipated, working in the factory, and so it didn't matter what we did in school. But this poem is really about one of the things that got me started being interested in writing, to try and find the heart beneath the surface of our daily lives and say these lives are important too. So the epigraph for this poem, the little quote at the beginning, is from those deep, profound lyrics by J. Giles. Ain't nothing but a party, ain't nothing but a party, ain't nothing but a house party. So that was pretty deep for us. Yeah, we could think about that for a long time. So this poem, Red Vinyl, is dedicated to Peter Wolf, who's the lead singer from that band. It starts out at a concert. We danced in aisles, on seats, shouted ourselves raw. The next day, ears ringing, we sat stunned in old classrooms, listening to the drone of old English poets telling us some shit about love, I guess. Our teacher talked about the I am, and we wanted the I am he sang about, while Magic Dick moaned on his harp, his afro a breaking wave, as he rocked, as he blew and blew. That ringing in my ears was poetry, I know now, pissed off and boasting, poetry with shades on. You danced crazy over the stage, them's the feet I thought were neat. You spouted, you shouted rhythm and blues rhymes. We were stupid white boys who worked on cars and had no imagination, who did poorly in school without even style to fall back on. We packed monster stereos into our junker cars and rocked loud enough to sing along without shame, while in English class we whispered and stuttered. Your best album, Blunt Shot, stamped on red vinyl, circled our turntables and damp basements like a neon cherry. Our futures, plain black vinyl, already a little warped, bald tires and bad news, dirty oil and rust. So why not shout a little first, telling wild stories at parties where I could laugh, lose the point, get a laugh and maybe a red kiss from a mixed up girl with dirty blonde hair. She's kissing everyone, but I don't care. I take it home, my ears ringing. I write that kiss down, pressing hard. Thanks. One of the great things about Detroit was that when you were bored, you could go to another country. So, we'd be hanging around, and in Detroit, you did everything in your car, so actually next couple deal with car activities. So we'd be sitting around, and we say, well, what do you want to do? They say, well, let's go to Canada. And in Detroit, you just go across the river. There's the Ambassador Bridge, and then there's a tunnel underneath. Another thing about Detroit is that it's laid out in a perfect grid pattern, and so it was very hard to get lost as the poem starts. So this poem is called Customs, because while we had a destination, we really had no idea what we were doing. Impossible to get lost on the long, straight roads in, around, through Detroit. Yet we tried, punks brash with stubborn loneliness, even in cars packed tight. From 6 Mile Road out to, where did they stop? 32, 38 Mile Road, each a mile apart. And the crossroads, Ryan, DeQuinder, Mound, Van Dyke, all a mile apart. Driving those streets like playing dots and boxes, where you connect dots till whoever forms a box writes their initials inside. Inevitably, we traced boxes, driving our cranky, rusty beasts, turning right, left. We always knew where we were, that all the boxes were ours and none of them were. And so we could not write any initials. If we plunged down a side street, it was like holding our heads underwater. In less than a mile or a minute, we'd surface and know our exact location. So the freeways drew us in, I-75, 94, 96, 696, twisting over and under street grids, rivers fast and rivers dangerous, roaring with the rapids of our engines. Whoosh, 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 past each other, making wind in the night under the silent glow of the fixed stars lining pavement. And some reckless nights, we could end up on a bridge or in a tunnel and arrive in Canada to answer questions about who we were and where we were going. Back before 9/11, you didn't need any ID to go across to Canada. The nice Canadians would just ask you some questions like that. This poem is set around the same time period, so I thought I would read it next. It's called Parked Car. And like young people everywhere who are looking for privacy, we did other things in our cars as well. And this poem was one of these poems that surprised me. That I thought it was going to be about the breakup of this high school, breaking up with my high school girlfriend. And it took this weird turn in the middle, so I hope you can turn with me as it veers away from sappy high school breakup poem. Parked car. Fred and I, drunk and stoned, drove around laughing like we did in the old days before I met Karen. And I said, "Drive by Karen's." And he said, "Are you sure?" And he said, "Okay," like he was tired and didn't want to end up bailing me out again. She'd given my ring back a month ago. I knew she had a date. A car was parked where I always parked. Fred pulled in on the other side of the street. We sat there. "There's no one in the car," Fred said. "No lights in the house." I squinted hard through the dark, saw a head pop up above the seat, then down again. I reached for the door. "There's no one in that car. We're leaving now," Fred said. He put his hand on my shoulder, gentle, firm. I turned to stone, then crumbled, wanting her and not wanting her while Fred drove me home. I held my open hand out the window against the cold wind. 40 years ago. Today, in a moment, rain changes to snow. Maybe it was Fred I loved that night. We have never called it that, and I still wouldn't to his face. That small touch during the years none of us ever touch each other. Sometimes I still drive by that spot with my wife who doesn't know the ghost living there. We don't kiss in cars anymore. Karen married, moved away. Ah, heart. Hearts. Mine and yours. Yeah, all of you. The times we've given it away for chump change. The heart. The fist. If you're lucky, someone grabs your shoulder. Yeah, sometimes our best friends help us do stupid things, but sometimes they keep us from doing stupid things. And, so that was a special occasion there. This next poem is also set on these streets. It's called Up on Blocks. And so I'm 60 years old, and I was too young for Vietnam. In our development around the car factories, we had all the car factories lining this one big road, Mound Road. But our factory was the Sterling axle plant. And so a lot of people moved into these houses around the same time in the 50s and started their families. So the oldest boys in the neighborhood got drafted. I had a draft card, but they stopped the draft. So I wasn't part of the lottery or anything. But this is a poem about someone who wasn't so lucky. It's called Up on Blocks. His father limping from his stroke, heaving his lunch pail into the back of his pickup like some stubborn, gimpy shot putter, then driving off to the job they gave him after his rehab, steering a high-low through the greasy plant after Danny died. One day, recovering on the porch, he hollered for the ice cream man to stop, then bought us all popsicles after Danny died because his son, Vietnam, and so, he had a cough that could maul a lion, but he wouldn't stop smoking after Danny died. Danny left his car, an absurdly red Fury, up on blocks on our Park Street to work on when he got home, but he never did. So after Danny died, the car sat rusting. No one touched it for years, till one night some asshole torched it. A whoosh heard down the block, and his father trembled and collapsed in the terrible light of the flames after Danny died. A tow truck dragged off the mess, gouging concrete into sparks as it pulled away, leaving charred cinder blocks like used-up Bibles. and we dump them in the weedy field behind Bronco lanes where they may be lying still after Danny died. Oh, the shame of the unmarked grave somewhere off the ends of our radio dials where we fiddled with the blown fuses of our cheap electric hearts after Danny died. His father survived the second stroke with one arm twitching. He returned to sit on that porch, drooling odd noises, flinging his good arm at flies. I sat with him one afternoon for hours, then never again after Danny died because I was no saint and he was no prophet. And his pickup replaced the Fury as a vehicle going nowhere, and his wife bagged groceries at the A&P down the block and brought home what she could carry after Danny died. And we were fierce and serious boys who would never go to war and thus could always be fierce. And we too smoked cigarettes and swore and fucked and carried on like Danny did before he died. And I have not mentioned his virgin bride and the ramshackle wedding of a false pregnancy annulled shortly after. But he had already signed up. That's the way it was on our street of the hard luck and the harder before and after Danny died. And he planted a bottle of Boone's Farm wine on every table in the grade school cafeteria. And we squeezed onto tiny benches and danced to top 40 in front of the stage where the bridal party sat. And he guzzled from the bottle like the King of America in his frilly tuxedo shirt. And his father, Lord, his name was Bruno, gave the saddest toast I'd ever heard, then sat down and smiled the beatific smile of the damned and the oblivious. And I cannot remember it now, having drunk from the bottle myself at 15. Nobody fought, and Bruno left happy, and the bride and groom drove off in the Fury toward the welcoming cliff, and after Danny died, the war ended quickly, and the ice cream man got busted for selling drugs. We all stood at attention at Bruno's funeral like soldiers who had lost their general, because he had once bought us popsicles, because we would live forever. And no one burned the pickup, and his widow took to driving it. And one winter morning, I scraped her windows clear, then never again after Danny died. Because I had my own car, and it started and ran, and I put on as many miles as I could after Danny died. Thank you. Now, one of the things I'm most proud of as a writer is having a poem of mine on the hood of on the roof of a race car, and so I need to read you that poem. So yeah, this guy who makes his living building and racing race cars out east somewhere emails me out of the blue and says, "Okay, all us car guys really love our cars, and I have this poem, Factory Love, which is a love poem to the machine I was working." And he said, you know, can I put that poem on my race car? And I said, yeah, sure, go ahead. And then somebody asked him, well, do you think anyone's actually going to be able to read that poem while you're driving around the racetrack? And he said, well, I hope I'm not driving that slow, but but it looks great in the pits. Now, this poem is a love poem for my machine in the factory. You know, when you're doing shift work, it means somebody else is working your job on the day shift and the midnight shift as well. So, and I was working a lot of overtime, trying to make as much money as I could. And some days I'd come in and my machine would be a little messed up. And I got this strange feeling that was kind of like jealousy. And that prompted this poem, Factory Love. Machine, I come to you 800 times a day like a crazy monkey lover, in and out, in and out, in and out. And you hardly ever break down, such clean welds, such sturdy parts. Oh, how I love to oil your tips. Machine, come home with me tonight. I'll scrub off all the stains on your name, grease and graffiti. I'm tired of being your part-time lover. Let me carry you off into the night on a high-low. That guy at Midnights, I know he drinks and beats you. So yeah, this little movement here is poems that have to do with work. I've always been interested in writing about work, because it controls, no matter what we do for a living, it controls so many other aspects of our lives. And sometimes we have these little victories. This is an older poem that I've never read in this area before, and I thought I'll bring it out because it's about one of those little victories. It's called Short Order Cook. An average Joe comes in and orders 30 cheeseburgers and 30 fries. I wait for him to pay before I start cooking. He pays. He ain't no average Joe. The grill is just big enough for 10 rows of 3. I slap the burgers down, throw $2 of fries in a deep fryer, and they pop, pop, spit, spit. Psst. The counter girls laugh. I concentrate. This is a crucial point. They're ready for the cheese. My fingers shake as I tear off slices, toss them on the burgers, fries done dumb, refill buckets, burgers ready, flip into buns, beat that melting cheese, wrap burgers in plastic into paper rags, fries done dumb, fill 30 bags, bring them to the counter, wipe sweat on sleeve, and smile at the counter girls. I puff my chest out and bellow, 30 cheeseburgers, 30 fries. They look at me funny. I grab a handful of ice, do a little dance, and walk back to the grill. Pressure, responsibility, success. 30 cheeseburgers, 30 fries. One of the highlights of my sad life. It's all downhill from there. So, I mentioned earlier, to me, it seems like this mic keeps coming in and out, but so I'm shouting anyway. It's okay? So this is a poem about plagiarism. I've been teaching a long time, and there are occasions to write poems about teaching. But this act of plagiarism was unique in that the student turned in lyrics to a Black Sabbath song as his own poem. And my initial reaction was, okay, I was proud of myself. Hey, I still got it. I recognize those lyrics, you know. And they're from War Pigs, one of Black Sabbath's most famous songs. And so it was kind of this little amusing anecdote that I was told the guys I taught with about. But then I started thinking about it, and a lot of times beneath the surface humor there was something else going on. And one of the first rock concerts I went to was seeing Black Sabbath when I was this young mixed-up kid who didn't know what he was doing, and Black Sabbath was speaking to me, just like maybe it was speaking to this kid. So the poem moves from this concert that I was at to my office where I was confronting this kid and back. Now I'll give you those, again, deep, profound lyrics. Only Black Sabbath could rhyme masses with masses. Generals gathered in their masses, just like witches at black masses, evil minds that plot destruction, sorcerer of death's construction. You could probably do a sing-along with that. I know. The other thing, again for the students here, who are a little younger, Ozzy Osbourne legendarily bit the head off a bat at a concert. Okay. Mega everything. The kid with stringy blonde hair and torn Megadeth t-shirt plagiarized song lyrics in his poem. Black Sabbath, I asked? In my tiny gray office, he idly kicked the metal desk, not meeting my eyes, but then he never did. 1972, Michigan State Fairgrounds. Black Sabbath ripped through the sharp muffle of Paranoid on the distant stage while I guzzled malt liquor from quart bottles on a gloomy Saturday afternoon. Ozzy stalking on stage scared me in a familiar Detroit way, like a biker gang crashing a high school party. I shook it off. I raised my fist. The kid said turning in the lyrics was a test, but would go no further. Had I passed, I wondered? Those lyrics, the only semi-coherent thing he turned in all term. He could have fooled me with Megadeth lyrics, and perhaps he had. We agreed that he should drop. He hesitated at the door like there might be one more thing. 16, my ears buzzed with dark star feedback, barking dogs, bloody teeth, fragments of a thorough ass-kicking. Ozzy's wire cutter rasped asked what happened when he died and where exactly was the soul. When the thunderstorm arced down on us, no one fled. We stood and took it. Poetry was all I had that wasn't toxic. I should have been easier on the kid. His name was Chris. He slumped away, black boots clomping against the floor, and I never saw him again. The bitter mascara of the unrepentant and the flawed jewel of self-absorption. Ozzy's damaged now beyond coherence. He hadn't yet bitten the head off a bat when I saw him in '72. He only had to do it once. The rest of us, Chris, we think about it every day under the black, incoherent moon. So, I'm one of four. I have three brothers and a sister, and my oldest brother, who actually still works for Chrysler in the auto industry, always had a motorcycle from when he was 16 years old till he had this accident. And this poem is called One Word, and it's about, some of you have been there. And somebody's unconscious in a hospital. You don't know if they're going to wake up again, or if they're going to wake up again, how much of them is still going to be in there. And it's a tough place to be. And we had a long time to think about it because it was a long, long recovery. And he's still, well, there's still some issues there. One word. My brother lies in his hospital bed, steeped in the clammy smell of the almost dead. Stitches hang stiff under his chin, a scraggly Fu Manchu they sewed on him, fresh off Life Flight. His motorcycle mangled by a 16-year-old running a stop sign. My brother is simply trying to speak, to push out a single word. The breathing tube's been removed. We thought when it came out he'd be telling us he's going to be all right, or at least where it hurts. But his brain still spun, weaving a fuzzy web. We bent over, smelling the pain, at his lips so close those stitches pricked. He's making a noise something like the Tin Man, but he's not saying oil me. He's not saying, what? Listen, come on, try again. It's more than a groan and less than satisfactory. Like the slow-mo grunt of a tennis player, so jazzed up he just can't hit it and keep quiet. Like the door to the principal's office swinging open for you. Come on, open your eyes, just one eye. A sound like grating breadcrumbs, an oral afterthought unfinished, the squeaky chair you squirm in, a dud firework. 6 days and they haven't given him a bath. He reeks. His thing's beeping again. And where's the nurse? And wait, we love you. Can you hear us? It's less than a whistle and more than maddening. The Tin Man's faux clumsy rattling dance. That dude's going to Oz, so why not us? We all have hearts. Brother, we'll make you a deal with the damn witch. Trade her some of your neat handwriting and good manners, broomstick, slippers, a package deal for a little translation, a little more wet space between dry lips for sound to come out. Anything, anything. My eyes closed, concentrating on the subtle rise and fall of what are less than syllables, but more than random. Oh, my brother, we're lighting the torches and heading out into the darkness to find the words and bring them back to you. Thank you. I'm just going to, this last little section is, I'm a parent myself, and I thought I would read you some poems about my kids. Ranging in age from the lovable stage to the maybe not quite so lovable, the teen years. So this poem is about the kids in the back of the car. And Oh, there it is. Sorry, I went to the wrong page number. It's called The Gravity of Math. My daughter counts how many people will love her forever. She says 2, me and her brother. My son says 3. Does that mean you love me? She asks. He's 7. She's 6. The moon is nearly full. Dreams are silent. I'm counting how many slabs of gray stone I have leaned against. He admits it, buckled in behind me. I can't see back there. The light pours loosely onto the pavement in front of us, spilling around the corner toward home. Feel my heart, she says. The world tilts, and I lean into the turn. So this is on the occasion of my daughter turning 13. It's called My Daughter Turned 13 Today. The sky turned to ash above her. The cement mumbled in the dust beneath her. Her father stood waving his arms in front of God's window. My daughter turned 13 today, and the wisdom of flying the flag turned dubious, and the night trembled in its thin dress and moaned. My daughter turned 13 today, and the moon had no comment, and the radio signals from the star molecule of her birth returned in frenzied static. My daughter turned 13 today, and songs were sung by hibernating insects and large women with time on their hands and stout men in silly uniforms and dogs with attitude. My daughter turned 13 today and gave me a face I have already forgiven. For I turned 13 once and spun on the dime's face and swore to live forever, even if it killed me, and I am still here puzzling it out. My daughter turned 13 today, nothing cute about it. Remember when we used to hold hands? She erased that memory with the very hand I held. My daughter turned 13 today, and the paperwork is lost in the mail. My daughter turned 13 today, and I worried to sliver in deeper. Tonight I hold the closed eyes of her first dream against the swallowed clock's brief satisfaction. The lights click off. Love, patient in its delicate skin, woven from scaffolding past. I welcome its brief mirage. 13 today. So meanwhile, this is a poem about my son, who, as indicated, is slightly older than her, but he wasn't driving yet, so it was maybe he was 15 in here. Yeah, it's called Last Night I Drove My Son Home. Last night I drove my son home from his friend's house where they were filming a movie starring my son in a love triangle. My son, 15, has never been in a love right angle or even a love straight line as far as I know. He stopped talking 2 years ago. To me, I mean. I got this secondhand from a street informant I'll refer to her to here by her code name, Little Sister. A warm night, windows roll down. My cheap car requires physical cranking. Not even a CD player. Purchased in 2003 when he was 10 and still kissed me goodnight and may even have held my hand while we watched old movies. No cable TV either. Yesterday he made me kill a giant bug and I briefly saw that 10-year-old again. Full moon. I could see him looking up at it, following it as I turned and we lost it to the trees. September, but moist like August. I ached for a few soft words between us in that silence. On a sidewalk near the park, a young man sat, face in hands, a friend standing helpless above him. I slowed down. "What's that guy doing?" I said aloud. "Is he okay?" "I see him too," my son said. As the friend helped the man to his feet, I sped on. My son hummed an old song about the moon that I didn't know he knew. My son, the star of a movie I'll never see. I just get these vague coming attractions. I caught him in a lie or two this week. Every exchange a house of cards. All it takes is a deep sigh and they come tumbling down. I'd have hummed along with him, but I didn't want him to stop. And because, if you're a parent, you make a lot of mistakes at various points. This poem is a little advice poem for people who might become parents someday about trying to not to lose your temper with your kids. So the poem's called, "If You Ever Have to Do This Yourself." My daughter started crying when she couldn't get the fake poop back into the fake butt of the pooping dog she won at the school carnival. She'd squeezed too hard and the poop popped out. I was driving home. He'd eaten half-frozen fries and gristly hot dogs, all for a good cause. She's in first grade. My son's in third. His dog still has its poop. She doesn't want me to say potty anymore, too babyish. Yet she was bawling. I lost it, yelling loud enough to scare us all. Back home, when I got them into bed, my daughter still snuffling, my son glazed over into silence. Shamed, I stood in the kitchen, jamming the orange rubber cylinder of poop back up the plastic dog's butt. I used index finger, I used thumb, I used tack hammer. I wet the poop, then squeezed with needle nose pliers until I got it all back in. 2 pooping dogs on the counter for them to find in the morning, to write their names on in Sharpie marker. They kissed me when I awoke. They held their puppies. We have no pets, though they're always asking. If you ever have to do this yourself, keep it together. Shut up and do love's dirty work. Thanks, and I'll finish with this one that I think kind of goes in some kind of circle. And rather than do any kind of official Q&A, I'll just be around in here to answer any questions you might have. I do have some books over there, and one of the things when you go do a reading somewhere, and you get back on the plane, and your suitcase is full of all the books you didn't sell. It feels not great. So if you can just make me an offer, we'll get rid of them. So my parents are 89 now. My mother's blind and walks with a walker. They're just kind of hanging on. This poem is called The Sound of It, and I hope it's one of those titles that makes sense after I read the poem. A couple things in this poem I might mention here in case you missed it, because we missed it for 30 years. One fact is that I was one of 5 kids in this little tiny house, and there were 4 boys in one room. It's the Lord of the Flies room, 2 bunk beds. And then my sister, lucky her, she got to share a room with my grandmother, and then my parents were in the other room. So the idea of privacy was kind of an hallucination. So my parents, and again, it took us 30 years to figure this out. When they were going to go have sex, my mother was going to give my father a back rub. And we said, oh, okay, a back rub. All right. And turn the TV on. Okay, yeah. And, so that's in here. The other thing is my mother had that surgery where they put the steel rods in her back and they actually poke out of her skin. It wasn't quite successful. And the other thing is that I got engaged at the age of 19, thinking I was in love somehow with that girl in that other poem. Okay. So I'll end with this sound of it, and thank you all for coming. The sound of it. When my mother gave my father a back rub in their bedroom, we had to turn up the TV and behave. We offered to give him back rubs. He claimed it wasn't the same. I got engaged when I was 19, $300 ring from the mall jeweler. When she went on vacation with her family, I kept a pair of her panties under the front seat of my car. After we broke up, I could still talk her into a back rub now and then, shamelessly invoking history like some pompous prime minister. She disappeared with an old friend of mine. Not old enough, yeah. My back gets a little sore just thinking about it. My mother has steel rods in her back now. She can't bend at the waist. They sleep in separate rooms so they don't keep each other up. I sold the ring for $50. The jeweler said he was giving me a deal. that I paid for the setting, not the gold. They'd melt it down, reused the diamond. My mother stored condoms in her jewelry box. Once I enrolled them and called them finger gloves. I filled them with water at the sink. She didn't say a word. She was cooking dinner. It all melts down again, even the steel in my mother's back. We are all still alive somewhere, metal detectors going off as we step through our lives. I wish it could still escape into that tiny room, one bed squeaking. When I'm having back trouble, the doctor tells me, oh, backs are funny, as if that explained everything. Rank your pain on a scale of 1 to 10, he says. That girl is nearly 60 now, like me. She had beautiful breasts, though I'm not sure I ever told her so. They're called massages now, and perhaps that sounds more soothing. From behind, I saw my parents hold hands last year, my mother leaning against her cane with her other hand. They were walking down a path toward a waterfall. The sound of it drowned out everything. Thank you.
I just want to thank everybody for coming. Really appreciate it. Goodness sakes, please help me give him another round of applause. All right, again, his books are over there. And please don't forget to put your cell phones back on so that you can hear those go off. Drive safely, and our next reading will be in 2 weeks. Rebecca Rotere at Hawks Landing. Thanks again.